Three, two, one. We're here, boys.
Welcome back.
Episode 2 of the Record Shepherds. How we feeling?
Feeling good today. Feeling good.
Danny's got a mic.
Hello, hello.
For those of you who can't see, which is all of you, Danny is our co-founder, co-producer, engineer extraordinaire.
The problem solver.
The problem solver. So, as we talk about these topics, he's going to sort of help us reel it in, provide a different perspective, which I think is always good in these types of conversations.
Yeah, and I think important to know is that Danny is an accomplished producer and an artist in his own right, and comes with that perspective. So that'll be interesting.
I'll be back here, guys. Whatever you need.
How was your weekend?
Very good. A lot of fun, a lot of work and a lot of fun. A lot of going out.
Work hard, play hard.
Yeah, gotta do it. Gotta be out there with the community,
I feel like if you're not brunching in New York, you're doing something wrong. We had a pretty good brunch.
I remember reading one time, I'm sure he said it tongue in cheek, but Julian Casablancas was leaving New York because there were too many people having brunch.
Oh, you can't hate on brunch.
No, you can't. That's good.
My problem, and a lot of people will tell you this if they know me, I have a ketchup addiction. Like I can't remember the last time I ate eggs without ketchup, but it's just like a weird thing that I do. I
mean, where if you're putting on the ketchup, are you having hot sauce?
Any salt of any kind, like hot sauce and ketchup combo mix.
Oh, you mix it, right?
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting, but like I don't know, I can't help it. It's like because it has a lot of sugar in it as well, so I'm probably addicted, but I just don't know it.
Yeah. I can't have eggs without hot sauce.
I think I have a taco addiction, actually.
Like for breakfast?
No, like
Just
for in general. Like there's a lot of times where it's like there's nothing. What do we eat? It's like let's go get tacos, and there are always amazing tacos all over New York City for some reason.
Do you prefer eating indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
You too?
Well, in general,
if the weather is nice. If the weather is nice, of course.
Are we talking about tacos in particular, or just generally?
In general, like the weather is nice, you will eat outdoors.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you mean by the weather is nice, because there's a fine line, isn't there? There's a window, but when it gets like hot and sweaty, I just want to be comfortable when eating.
Yeah.
But like that sort of like European sat out on terraces, squares, like eating outside. I think that's amazing, man.
I don't like my food being left up to the elements. Like I really hate, eating in birds and things are just hopping around me. I don't like it.
Oh yeah.
There's a funny story about that. I'll cut it real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was eating blueberry pancakes. I hadn't ordered blueberry pancakes, just ordered pancakes.
Uh-huh.
Turns out I was sitting directly underneath a telegraph wire, and these little birds were pooping into my pancakes.
No way that really happened.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you finish them?
Well, obviously, I was like,
protein, bro.
Where are these little blueberries coming from?
Yeah.
Dear.
That's pretty disgusting.
That was nasty.
Yeah. My weekend was good. Just chill, brunch. Typical. The older I get, the less I want to be outside, and I don't know. Every time I eat, I want to go to sleep. So, and yeah, like again, I like air conditioned, kitchen clattering, waiters and waitresses running around. I like that experience. I hate eating outside. It's like my least favorite thing.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, if you ever take me on the date. Yeah.
Well, right. I'm about to cancel some reservations right now.
Current music news. Let's get into that.
What's happening in the world of music?
Coachella. You got Coachella's happening right now.
Yes, this weekend and of course next weekend. That's interesting. I saw one of the headlines from earlier this weekend.
A lot of artists debuting new music at Coachella.
Yes.
I know Meg Thee Stallion debuted a song. Harry Styles debuted a couple songs. Performing with
Shania Twain.
Shania Twain,
yeah. They were both pretty made up about that. I think they were both fairly smitten with each other. It was a bit of a loving going on because they have both big artists in their own right. And
what do you think about Harry?
I think he's a dude, man. I mean, like he's
a dude. Brought to you by the Record Shepherds.
I mean, what can you say about Harry Styles that hasn't already been said? But I think not a lot probably, but you know, he's a bit of an enigma. You know, he is like, I think we like the way he presents himself. You know, even the clothes he wears, he's constantly pushing boundaries. Like, remember that one he was wearing? Like, I mean, I don't know how to describe it other than he was wearing your grand's pearls with your like a little blouse and everything, and like, but you know, only he and a few other people can actually pull that off and make it look cool. Like, he's a handsome devil. Let's be honest.
I think there's like reincarnations of a Harry Styles every generation. You know, it's like the androgynous sort of artistic. You know, it's like a Prince or like a David Bowie. You know, but it's not gimmicky. You know, I genuinely think like that's who he is.
Authentic. Yes.
It's just part of the expression. You know, like when you see an artist that really goes into very unique styles, they're just digging into their own
creativity
and their own personality, and without fears, and that's what kind of like inspires other people. You know, like they just go for it.
He's you know, that artistry is not, you know, compartmentalized to just his music. It manifests itself in every part of his life, I feel. So
it's almost like he has like the onstage charisma of like a Bruno Mars, right? But he has this sort of expression that appeals to women and, you know, appeals to, you know, guys too.
Dashing good looks.
Yeah. And I think he's a great artist at the end of the day. Seems like a nice guy. Yeah. And then, so that was that. And then I read something interesting. So Billie Eilish, I think, headlined Saturday night. That
might be right. Yeah, I think that might be right.
And she said that she didn't think that she deserved to headline it, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if, you know, she's 20 years old. She's a young artist.
Yeah, I wonder what prompted her to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, she's very current, very of the moment. It's not like she just, you know, she's 2 albums in the bag at this stage, both very successful, and, you know, it's not like, just, you know, she's like a one-hit wonder or something like that with one album just out. You know, it's like, I think she's earned it at this stage.
Yeah, and I think whether you like an artist's music or not, or you believe they deserve these accolades, you know, artistically, at the end of the day, it's whether they can sell tickets or not. And I mean, I like Billie Eilish's music, but
she can definitely pack up an arena.
100%. It's about about relevancy, and I think maybe what she's referring to, I think maybe one has to do with her being young, but it's also like she probably admires a lot of other artists. You know, like for me, I love Erykah Badu, right? But is Erykah Badu going to be, you know, headlining Coachella? Probably not right now, you know. But Billie is able to because she's relevant. So I think she probably, you know, looks at a bunch of musicians that she admires and pays homage to, and she thinks, you know, oh, maybe these people should be deserving to headline Coachella, not me right now. But I think that's just jitters, you know. It's like
that's very interesting. That gets into a lot of like artist psychology, and, you know, I think anyone at, you know, any aspect, especially near the start of their career, will suffer from imposter syndrome,
right?
You know, as like
especially at 20 years old, like
20 years. That's you know, that's so young. You honestly haven't had much life experience still at the years of 20 years old, and it's like when you see these incredibly talented people having success so early on, you know, like they have to grow up a lot more quickly than a lot of other people, you know, especially if they're in the public eye. But the reality is, you know, you've only been on the planet for 20 years.
Right.
You know, it's not a long time, certainly not a long time, you know, and the vast majority of that time you were a child.
Yeah, like her ability to comprehend things and like have conversations with people like an adult has been like a year probably, you know.
A couple of years.
I mean, you know, they say like women mature faster, so I know for me, like
that's definitely true.
Yeah. I still don't know if I can
She has
communicate.
definitely seen a lot, I'm sure. I mean,
no,
if you are Billie Eilish and you're headlining
Of course.
Coachella
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you are at the level that she is, she's probably lived a lot. But yeah, time just changes people, you know? So maybe she feels like this is a happening too fast to her, but she also should be somehow grateful that she got the opportunity instead of being dismissive to her,
Well, I wouldn't. I just think it's
to her merits.
The point I'm trying to make is she's there on her merits. Exactly. You know, she deserves it.
She deserves it,
and
exactly.
but I think it is natural and I think it happens to everyone, not just in music, but any sort of high performing athlete or whatever, you know, or even just in other forms of life, that you get this imposter syndrome. But well done, Billy, for headlining.
Yeah, at the end of the day, own your moment. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, maybe people think you get some sort of brownie points for like being humble and acknowledging like other people before yourself, but at the end of the day, you're there for a reason, so you might as well use that platform and, you know.
No, like being humble, of course, I think it's a good quality, but I think it's only human to sort of to sometimes feel that like you don't deserve it, but the point is she does.
Yeah.
Also, it's an opportunity, but it's also a huge responsibility, you know? Because when you're at that point and at that level, it's like, it doesn't matter if you're humble or not. You better deliver.
Yeah.
You better give a show that is worth it.
Yeah. And I would say, okay, so one of the bigger news events of Coachella is Kanye West pulling out at the last moment.
Yes.
And I think I read that he had an $8 million payday and plus $500,000 for production fees. So, I mean, look, Kanye's been in the news pretty consistently for the past 3 months, right? So we can all take a guess as to why he pulled out, but I think it's more interesting in this context to talk about like the implications and the impact it had on the festival itself. I think the festival ended up not selling as many tickets, and, you know, they had to scramble to sort of find last minute replacements, which was The Weeknd and
Swedish House Mafia.
Yeah. And I think The Weeknd wanted to get paid just as much as Kanye requested for his fees. So I thought that was interesting.
I mean, at least Kanye gave them some notice, right?
Right.
You know, but hey, if you're Swedish House Mafia's live agent, you know, you're
if you're The Weeknd
or The Weeknd, sorry, if you're The Weeknd's agent and, you know, they're looking to replace, well, you know, that's just a free market negotiation.
Yeah, so how much you got for the job?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think at that point papers were signed with Kanye West and the festival?
Most likely.
So do you think they'd be able to sue him based off of like what was in the contract? Like if they're actively losing money because they've spent promotional dollars saying Kanye West is headlining this festival and then he pulls out.
It will depend on the actual what's been agreed in the contract as to put, you know, there will be a point in time where you know, as long as they give them notice by X date, that there's no repercussions, I should imagine. However, sometimes it doesn't matter what is in the contract. It's like, are you really going to go and sue one of your artists who's in the position that Kanye's in and what he's going through at the minute, etc., and you know, and then sour relationships with him?
Yeah, and that's a conversation about leverage, because you don't get him this year, but that doesn't mean you don't want him.
Of course,
you know,
of course. So like, and you know, they've got, I think they'll take a commercial decision. They're insured against this type of thing for sure, and so no, they wouldn't. I don't think.
But they also gave him a lot of money.
They'll be able to
They already gave him a lot of money,
back,
so he's gonna be like, yeah, that money's gotta come back somehow.
Like a deposit. They probably had a deposit for him or something like that.
Yeah, but anyway, look at it's great that festivals are coming back, and you know, it's that's been a source of revenues for artists that has not been available, and I think that segues nicely.
Great segue.
into what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. So for our first few episodes, we're sort of trying to lay out a roadmap for independent artists when it comes to how to distribute your music all the way to how to make money off of it and market it and leverage your career to then get more opportunities. So, this week we're talking specifically about making money off of your music in the form of royalties. So you can make money several different ways. You can go on tour, right? You can sell merch. So as a artist, you have a lot of different options, but today we're talking specifically royalties.
Yes.
So I'm an artist. I've listened to the Record Shepherd, so I already know how to put my music up on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, all that good stuff. So I keep hearing this thing called royalties. A lot of major artists, when having disputes with their labels, use this term. A lot of people who advocate for independency use this term. So what is a royalty? What are royalties?
Yeah, I think in its simplest form, a royalty is just a payment that is due in exchange for the use of your music. It's actually quite interesting where it came from. Royalty, if you think about it, what's a royal? What's it got to do with the royals, right?
Right.
And I think from what I understand, the origins of it were actually to do with the exploitation of minerals and the mining of minerals. And a mining company or someone that wants to come and try to whatever it is, like mine copper or gold or diamonds, whatever it might be, whatever minerals in the ground they're after, they would have to get permission from the landowner. And often, in addition to whatever deal was struck there would be a payment due to the crown, okay, in lots of different kingdoms, etc.
Like a tax.
Like a tax almost, yeah, because you're taking it out of the earth and, supposedly this is all owned by king and country, that type of thing. Right. So there was a payment due, and that payment was known as a royalty.
Right. So
the same concept became applied or was applied to other types of industries, and in particular publishing and anything to do with the exploitation of intellectual property rights.
Right.
Which music is there's obviously intellectual property rights involved with music, copyright in particular.
Got you.
So that's when your music is used, played, exploited, whatever you want to term it, there will be a payment due to the, let's say in the first instance, the owner of that music.
Right, and that leads us to the next thing. What are the different types of royalties?
Yeah.
The main categories.
Yeah, well, for your music, it can essentially be split into two main buckets, right? You've got royalties due from the use of the sound recording, right? The actual record. And then you have royalties due from the use of the song, right? And just to get, some people get confused a little bit when you talk about that. But if the three of us pick up the guitars and we write a song right now, we have a song, that's a composition. Right. We haven't recorded it at this stage, so there is no recording of the song, but it's still a song. And
traditionally, the composition, is typically lyrics and melody.
Yeah, lyrics and melody. The actual music, like how it's composed, and you can write that down in the form of sheet music.
Structured.
Yes,
all that good
stuff. When those artists at Coachella get up on the stage and they perform to that crowd, the song is being used and exploited, let's say. However, the record is not. There's no recording being played.
Right.
Assuming they are playing live and not lip syncing.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference. There's two buckets of royalties there, and the reason for that, I think it's important to talk about, is because often, and certainly historically, artists were not the writers of their own music.
Yeah. What was the statistic we were talking about for like an average pop song? You have about 7 writers.
Nowadays, yeah, you've got like on the average pop sign. It might even be more than that. It's sort of like the trend is sort of
it's
increasing.
It's a lot of times a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But, average.
So I think if they looked and of the average, top 10 songs at any one time or whatever, there's like more than 7. It could even be up to 9 different songwriters involved in that. And that's also when you look at like, you've got the actual songwriters, etc. Someone's doing like the beat, then there's like the top line. It all forms because you're in writing sessions together,
right.
And it's like hard to actually place who came up with what, etc.
Also in today's pop industry, I would say there's a lot of, politics involved. So everybody involved is playing a specific role. Maybe somebody is there because they're the friend of the producer that also is participating in some sort of way because he was the one that
hooked up the session.
Stuff like that.
Funny enough, you say that. Kanye West is notorious for giving splits to people who gives everybody a cup of coffee at his sessions. He may give them like 1% or 2% because in his mind it justifies, you contributed to this record because like you helped the session in some way. And that's up to I guess whoever the majority owner of the publishing or the sound recording is, that's up to them. But I just think it's interesting, like the threshold for who gets a split on the record is interesting.
Well, the split is basically
on the song.
On the song. But what's happening is that I'm one of the persons that I'm happy to give a percentage to everybody that participates in an equal way, regardless of how much you put on the song per se, because sometimes like, you're the producer, sometimes you do a lot and then the other person comes up with just the one line on the hook that is like, it's hard to define those percentages, right? But as long as you contribute to the music, you should participate on that. But if you're not contributing to the music, it's just not.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think it's important for our listeners is that if you ever are in a writing session like that, and you do come out with a song that is part finished or finished, even better, then as quickly as possible, it's a good idea to actually agree what the splits are going to be on that song. Who contributed what. Are you going to split it equal ways?
Or even before the session, I suggest that a lot of times to the artists, like have that conversation, because the moment you are going into a room to make a song with somebody, you're creating a potential money-making machine. That song could change your life, but if you don't agree what you're gonna do with that once it's created, then somebody might walk away with it. And
But coming back to the original point is there are royalties paid based off the exploitation of the song and royalties paid based off of the exploitation of the sound recording.
Yes.
And the analogy you were using is the three of us could write a song for a pop artist. And when they record that song, that does not necessarily mean that we own the rights to that recording, but we can still participate in the exploitation of the song because we wrote it, but we can't necessarily participate in royalties from the actual sound recording.
Exactly. And if that, that artist records that song, it's we're rooting for that recording to be, to go on and do great things and be played all over the world because we have an interest in it. We wrote the song.
Right. So let's talk about the different types of royalties within the major categories. So out of the publishing or the song, what are different types of royalties that I can be paid from?
Yeah. So from the song, there's a few main different ways. There's probably 3 main different ways you get paid on the song. There are performance royalties. So when your song is performed, be it over the radio, or you're performing it live at a show, there are royalties due from that. And there are actually things called PROs, performing rights organizations.
Correct.
In the US, it's ASCAP, BMI, CSAC are the main ones.
Mm-hmm.
Overseas, you got like PRS, GAMA, STIM, and they are tasked with licensing a lot of the people who want to use your money in that sort of way, and then collecting that money and paying it out. So performance monies. There's then mechanical royalties. Mechanical royalties are essentially when someone wants to record your song and then print CDs is a good example. Okay, so if you want to make 1,000 copies of a record, print 1,000 CDs, you're copying that song 1,000 times, and there's a royalty due to that because you want to use the song. You don't own the song necessarily. So that is called a mechanical royalty because it's like it's a mechanized reproduction of the song.
And is streaming considered a mechanized reproduction of the song?
It actually depends on the type of streaming you're doing and in the country, but I think it is considered a mechanical for the most part.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, yeah. Because we were talking earlier, you can have performance rights and mechanical rights off of a stream. It just depends on the type of stream, on demand.
Yeah, interactive versus non-interactive, essentially.
So just for our listeners, because this could get a little complicated. It's simply just when your song is being played online, that's already a use. That's kind of like selling the song.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Like streaming,
every
obviously,
time it streams is like, okay, boop, boop, chin chin.
Exactly. There's a use of the song in that. That's probably the easiest way to think of it. And you'll be due royalties from that as a songwriter.
And then the third one is
the third one is synchronization, which or sync as it gets called, and that's essentially whenever you license the song to somebody who wants to synchronize your song to either still images or video footage. Like think of it like somebody wants to use your song as the sort of the soundtrack to a movie scene, right? And it adds a lot of value. Can you think of some of the most memorable movie scenes without the music?
Yeah,
it'd be terrible.
No,
so so it's that's sync, and it can be that movies and TV, but also like advertising,
commercials.
Like that, commercials. Right. Like here in New York City, that's a big one. A lot of the sync industry for like film and TV is more on the West Coast in the States. Here in New York, it's a lot of it is advertisements, commercials.
Yeah, and I would say as an independent artist looking to get paid, I think sync is definitely one of your biggest tools. Just being in a group myself, we got a few Capital One commercials, which is really cool. But it's try to look for companies that are sync licensing companies that are. There are actually a few of them that are independent of like the major label institutions, where they'll offer you non-exclusive agreements, and their sole purpose is to pitch their library to music supervisors and people who program the music in commercials and movies and TV shows, etc. So there's a number of them. You can do your research, but they are basically tasked with exploiting the music in this specific medium of sync. So that's a really good way to get paid as well.
I think we talked last week on one of the independent distributors, Song Trader, started as a sync licensing business. So
are these sync licenses also being applied to online content?
They can be. So I know independent film, for example, that's one thing that sync licensing can fall under. But I guess it would just depend on like the type of online content you're talking about. When it comes to like streaming services, that's not considered sync licensing. But yeah, like you were saying, any use of music to imagery or video, I guess would be considered sync licensing.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the three. There are other ones, but those are the three main ones that most of our
in the song category.
In the songwriting, yeah. So then on the pardon me, the actual record side, okay, when you take that song into the studios and you make a recording,
right?
Now you're wanting to go and exploit or sell that recording and hopefully make money from it, okay?
And right now, as we're talking about, assuming that you own that recording and that you're not in a deal or an agreement where somebody else owns that recording, whether it be a production company or a label. So like you as an independent artist recorded this music and you own it with your band or as a sole like individual.
Yes, exactly. So, let's relate it to the realities of the world we're living in right now. How are you making your money from the recording? Hopefully, if you listen to our episode 1, you're going to get yourself a distribution partner in place. And now your music is on the likes of Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, etc. And for all of that, the use of your music, your distribution partner should be collecting those revenues and accounting to you. As we found out sometime last week, there's a lot of companies who will account to you for 100% of those revenues.
Right.
And that's how you make your money, from the master. The more people are actually streaming your music and using it, then obviously the more money you will make. So, that's one way. There's another way, which we can touch on, but it's if you sign a record deal, like a traditional record deal.
Yep.
One thing before we get into that, there's also music money to be made on the sound recording, also from synchronization. Right. So like if you think about it, if the film, the TV company wants to use, the most famous recording, that's the one that everyone's heard, that everyone's familiar with.
Right.
So the song is being used, sure, but so is the sound recording. So there's the sync fee typically gets split 2 ways. There's the songwriter gets a proportion, and usually it's on an equal basis, the owner of the sound recording. And if you're an independent artist, that means you get a fee for the use of the sound recording.
Will you also get performance royalties from whatever performance happens of that synced piece, or that's already included on the sync license?
No, you'll get performance royalties for whenever that's like broadcast, etc. Yes.
Yeah. So the song or the publishing end is always being exploited, because you can't exploit the recording without exploiting the song. So it covers a wider category of what you can get paid off of on the publishing end. Whereas on the sound recording end, there's only specific things, that you can get paid off of, which are, like the actual use of the sound recording.
Yeah, the actual use of, like, as we said, like a sale of a CD, obviously, the streaming. And then everything else is essentially called secondary use. Examples like synchronization. If you wanted to license your track, let's say, to somebody who's making a compilation,
right?
That's typically it. But that's more in the world of, record labels do those sorts of things. For a lot of independent artists, it's more, just collecting the money from the digital service platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, etc. And then if you've got a sync agent on board, then there's synchronization monies to be made on that side as well.
So as an independent artist, going back to the sound recording specifically, my music is being streamed on Spotify. What does my payout look like? Like what are the numbers that we're talking about when it comes to streaming?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone knows that they're crazy low. Right. It's like 0.0004 or whatever, like dollars that you get for every stream. The streaming rates are like super low. And that's why there's this big debate about, how, Spotify one of their missions is to be able to have 1 million artists, earning a living, like being able to sustain themselves from
streaming alone.
From streaming.
Yeah.
They're nowhere near that, and it's great to have ambitions, and like hopefully they do get to that stage. But streaming, you do not earn very much money, and it's so complicated. There's so many different payment plans that Spotify offer, depending on whether you're, which country you're in for a start. Which are you on, like a family plan? Are you on like a student plan? I think there's something like over 30 different plans that Spotify offer.
So based off of the specific plan, they'll dictate
Pardon me.
No, you're good. So based off of the specific plan, that can alter the streaming rate for your song.
Yeah, basically where your song is being streamed makes a difference. If you have 1 million streams.
Yeah, 1 million streams
in the US,
in the US is not
like
the same
streams in Colombia.
Yeah, exactly. And it's for lots of different reasons, but also like the subscription plan down there, and how much people have to pay, the advertising revenue, etc. So it's a complicated enough. We'd take a pod to actually go through
break that down.
Yeah.
But one more thing on that. So who actually dictates the streaming rates? Is it the stores themselves? Is it the DSPs?
Yes, and their negotiations with the stakeholders, who are essentially, for the most part, the major labels.
Right. So maybe we can transition to, I guess, what royalty payouts look like on a record deal.
Yeah. Okay. So this is, you're going back to the sort of the origins of how this whole, the record industry started up, but it was expensive to record music. Like there was no garage band back in those days, right? So you had to have a studio and a lot of the expensive equipment, etc. And record labels started up. They'd have these studios and they'd take people in, artists, to record songs, often not written by those artists. They'd be written by professional songwriters. And the deal was, we're going to make this recording. Essentially, the record labels, we've facilitated this, we've paid for all this equipment, we are going to own the sound recording, but we will pay you, the artist, a royalty, and that's essentially a percentage which we will negotiate with you of every record that gets sold.
Right. A sound recording royalty.
Yes.
And also, the artist is getting extra money in advance a lot of times when they get this record deals, right? Because the royalties that they're gonna get is how they get.
Yeah, and well, you're talking about advances that like artists have to live, right? And so often, and it's still the case in traditional record deals, and when I say traditional, I'm dating back to those days, but that's how the majors still do it. They will say, we will give you an advance of we'll give you the royalties from the sales that have not yet happened. We'll give you that up front. Okay, so you might get let's say a $50,000 advance on your royalties, and it is a little bit of a gamble because that record is still not sold. A lot of the time, most of the time people have not even heard it yet. It hasn't even been made, that record. So that's part of the risk that record labels take. They invest that capital. There's no obligation to pay that money back.
And I think why this business model can be confusing to a lot of people is, I feel like a lot of people think of it in like a profit share or profit split situation like any other business, and those exist in the record industry too. But if me and you start a business, we both put in $1,000, right, and we split the business 50-50, then it's agreed upon that we are not going to see profits off of that business until we have recouped that $2,000 that we have both put in, and then we start to see the actual revenue share from that business. How it works though is the label is putting up all this money. They're giving you the advance. They're paying for the recording. They're paying, the marketing expenses and other recoupable costs. And typically, those costs are recoupable from your split. So you're not actually seeing revenues from your record, your album, until you've recouped the initial cost that the label has put in. But for accounting's sake, the label is still collecting their portion of the royalties while your account is technically still in debt.
Yeah, that's right. There are a lot of costs which ultimately the artist has to pay for. Now you never need to like take out your checkbook and actually write them a check, but you're going to pay them from your royalties. So your royalties that would otherwise be coming through to you go towards covering those costs.
And what's the traditional royalty split there?
It really depends, and it's improved over the years, but let's say somewhere between 16% and 20%, moving up towards 25% if you're like a really like an artist in a commanding position.
Right. So for simplicity's sake, so let's say it's an 80-20 royalty split. The label is getting 80%, the artist is getting 20%. The label is collecting their 80% royalty.
They're collecting 100%.
They're collecting 100%.
They're collecting
right.
100%. They're taking, if we're doing this.
But your 20% allocation is going towards
recouping the cost that they have agreed with you in your record deal will be recoupable. So
basically, the label is like a bank that is lending you money that also sells you services so your record becomes big, because they're not really paying for those services to make it big. They have the system, right? They have the marketing and the platform and the employees and everything. But the artist is the one paying for that service.
The artist is utilizing, essentially a good way of thinking about these record labels is that they are, skilled marketing companies of music, right? And they have the infrastructure, of course, and all these things, and there's a lot of overhead that comes with that. There's also a lot of costs that the record label does fund themselves. So manufacturing costs under a traditional deal. We talked about the mechanical royalties earlier.
Right.
That record label wants to print 1,000 CDs or 10,000 CDs, whatever it might be. The record label has to pay the owner of the rights to the song. Let's say it's us, the three songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
They got to pay the mechanical royalty to the three of us. And that cost is, that's on the record label traditionally.
It's a cost that's assumed by the label because
by the label, they don't charge you. They don't charge the
your
artist
royalty,
for that.
Yeah,
you don't have to recoup those costs. So there are certain costs that are typically it's the recording costs,
mm-hmm.
and then a portion of sort of outside independent marketing and promotional costs. So like they don't charge you for the use of the label's own sort of in-house team, but anything outside that you'll be recouping a portion of that from your, as you said, 20% royalty.
Yeah, and it's again it gets a little complicated, but just think about it like a business, right? Like if I'm investing all of this money in you, I have to find a way to recoup my money, to get my money back, and it's going to come out of your split versus like my split as the label. But and you think about it like if you were funding your music independently, if you independently have put $10,000 into your own music, and let's say you own 100% of your sound recordings, you are technically in the hole to yourself $10,000.
Yes.
So you're and you might not think about it that way, but it's like a business, right? Like you are paying off the $10,000 debt that you've put into yourself until you actually see a profit.
Yes, but let me point out one important difference with those. Under that circumstance, when you're self-funding it, at the end of the day, you own the product. You own your sound recording. Under these traditional deals, you do not own your sound recording. Most of the time, certainly not at the start, the label owns the sound recording.
The risky part of funding your own project as an artist is that you really don't know how to spend that money the most efficient way. You could have I've seen it. I've worked with artists that are independent that for some reason have the money to invest on their projects, but the projects just don't go where they expected them to go because they didn't know how to utilize that money the best way possible. And the labels, sometimes they already have a system that...
I mean, it really, it depends. Like if you are an independent artist and you have your team together, you have your own staff of marketers, your management is on point, and you're paying all of these people as well, right? It's not like they're doing these services for free.
Exactly.
Then yeah, you might not need to utilize a label. But if you're going to go the label route, then you're giving up ownership of your sound recordings.
Typically, yes.
And even if you do recoup and you actually start to see your 20% royalties from the exploitation of the sound recording, you still don't own that music.
Yeah, exactly. And I think now is sort of a good time to say that, you know, there are new players in the market, and it's like not with you don't always have to give up ownership. There are sort of like progressive companies out there, and even, you know, some of the majors, whenever your stock is high enough, they will do licensing deals where you retain ownership of your master, but you give the label rights for a set period of time. Let's say it's 10 years, right?
Gotcha.
And
No,
so
that's a good point. But I guess to summarize, if you're an independent artist, after really at the same time or even before you've distributed your music, you need to register with these collection organizations, whether it be the PROs, the MROs, the NROs.
That's a lot of acronyms.
What does it stand for?
So you have the performance rights organizations, which are the ASCAP.
ASCAP. Well, in the States, we're looking at ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, yes, and others. Overseas, there's other ones: PRS, GAMA, STEM, SASM. And then another, you know, we talked about the performance rights on the songwriting side. It's also important to say that now we have Sound Exchange here in the United States, which if you're an independent artist and you perform, you're a performer even, or you own your own masters, you should register with Sound Exchange. And essentially, that's like the they call it like the neighboring right, the reciprocal right of the performance royalty is due. But when the actual sound recording is played in a performance setting, so right now in the States, it's on non-interactive digital streaming services. So by non-interactive, it basically means that like it's almost like a radio service. You can't actually pick and choose, the order of the songs.
It's not like Spotify that you pick whatever song you want to hear.
Exactly, Spotify's interactive.
And that. Yeah. Or like Pandora, you put a station.
Sirius, iHeart, and one interesting thing on this, like Sound Exchange are at the forefront of lobbying the government for this, but currently, unlike in many other countries that have a royalty due on public broadcast, like radio broadcast, we're talking about terrestrial radio, of the sound recording, right? In those other countries, like the UK is an example, that there is a royalty paid to the owner of the sound recording and the performers when the song is played on terrestrial radio. Here in the United States, there's currently not, and it's essentially due to the size of the lobbying groups for commercial radio.
Got it.
But maybe in the future there will be. But right now you get those sorts of royalties from Sound Exchange from non-interactive digital streaming services. Pandora is the best one to think of.
Cool. So
bottom line, there's a lot of royalties out there.
There's money, yeah. Like if you can get a sync agent,
getting a sync agent, I think is pretty key. That's like one of the steps. Like non-exclusive sync agreements are really going to help you registering with these collection organizations on the publishing end as well as on the sound recording end. So,
yes, and your distribution partner, will be taking care of the other royalties. Essentially the revenues that come from the Spotifys, the Apples, the YouTube, and accounting to you.
Also, if you're a songwriter, and because we talk about publishing.
Yeah.
Royalties, right? But then the publishing royalties are actually two kinds of publishing royalties that
within the performing rights.
Yeah. And if you're a songwriter, you basically own the song that you wrote, but you also own the publisher share of that, which is like
you're right.
Which is like a different royalty that comes from the same thing.
Yeah, that we run the risk of complicating it too much because we can probably do a deep dive on publishing and what publishing deals look like, etc.
Publisher share versus songwriter share.
Yeah, under statute, it's broken up into two halves. There's the actual the songwriters themselves, the individuals and their share, and then typically these people were signed to publishing companies.
Yeah.
Back in the day, where to get your music out there, you had to basically have someone print all the sheets, like an actual publisher, and distribute it to homes, etc., where people could play your songs on piano. Mm-hmm. So that's the publisher's share, and I think it's if you're joining a PRO, just go onto their websites. ASCAP, BMI were probably the two main ones that you want to look at in the States, and it'll talk you through it all. You have to register a publishing designee, like a company, and you can call it whatever you want, and that just ensures that you're collecting the publisher share as well.
Yeah, and we're always going to put these resources in the description on the YouTube page and other places where our podcast is distributed. I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up for now.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. We're going to be coming back, with more episodes like this, hopefully bite-sized chunks. And if you find it useful, then please tune in to the next one.
Yep. Follow us on go ahead.
I was going to say that we also want to hear what our listeners have to say. If you want to send us an email or a comment or just contact us in whichever way, we'll like to hear what you think about this podcast and what you want to hear about, maybe there's some topics that our listeners want to hear.
Yep. Email us at therecordshepherds.com. You can also listen to us where all podcasts are played.
Recordshepherds@gmail.com.
Recordshepherds@gmail.com. And listen to us where podcasts are played. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. And our little motto?
I don't know. What is the motto?
Don't be the sheep.
Be the goat.
Be the goat.
Follow the shepherds. Follow the guidance of the shepherds.
And be the goat. We gotta do that again. We gotta do it again.
We're gonna get it together. By next episode, we'll get this motto. So don't be the sheep.
Follow the guidance of the shepherds and be the goat. Thank you.